Tore it apart. Oh, how many times have you broken my heart? You took my word, tore it apart. How many times have you broken my heart? How many times have you broken my heart?
Two doors down, there's a jukebox that plays all night long. Real sad songs, all about
our meetings. And Dr. Schultz, at some point tonight, I'm going to need to turn over the reins to you so that you can share your documents. So will you walk me through that again about how I need to do that to make you a co-host?
Yeah, you bet. So if you look at me, if you hover your mouse over my picture and click on those three dots, I think you will be able to make me a co-host, or probably that's the best choice,
And now
is to
you
make
are.
me a co-host.
Yeah,
Thanks.
you're welcome. Okay, folks are still joining, but I'm going to go ahead and get started if you all are okay with that. Welcome. I want to say I'm Monica McGee. I'm the president of Lakeridge Middle School PTO for this year, and I'm trying to admit people. At the same time, I'm trying to welcome you all to the meeting. I want to say hello to our new assistant principal, Ryan Fuhrer, who's up here on the screen waving to everybody. If you haven't met her yet, today was her first day with students at Lakeridge Middle School. Yeah, yay. So to kick off our meeting, I want to go ahead and approve our minutes from the last meeting we had, which was, believe it or not, was in November. And those meetings are found, the minutes are found on the Lakeridge Middle School PTO website. I can share those out, but at this point, our board has had the opportunity to review those. So we'd like to go ahead and vote to approve. If I could have a motion from the floor.
I'll make a motion. This is Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
Would anybody like to second?
I'll second. This is Andrea Strachey.
Thanks, Andrea.
All in favor of approving the PTO minutes from the November 2020 meeting? Give me a thumbs up in the screen. Thank you. That motion carries. Sarah, are you taking notes for us tonight in addition to making motions and reporting on fundraising? Okay.
I am Inquiry, and I am Jen, and I'm also Sarah.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. Just a couple things before we go into our treasurer's report. I want to say a huge thank you to parents who donated to our Amazon wish list to restock, or actually stock, the new staff lounge at Lakeridge Middle School. The response was overwhelming from parents, and we are pretty covered for the spring in terms of snacks and supplies. Parents spent $2,352.35 on supplies. And so I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who participated in that. It was the first time we've ever tried it. So.
And Monica, I'm going to chime in and just say, oh my gosh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Like, it was such a big deal for staff when they came in, and there's treats and like flatware and plates, and like, you guys took such good care of us. So yeah. I had to chime in and say thank you.
It was pretty amazing for me to watch the list and how quickly that list was exhausted. And just interestingly enough, I did get some feedback from a couple parents in the district who teach outside of our district. And Dr. Schultz, I don't know if this is possible, but one of the comments that was made, and I thought it was so pertinent to what we're doing as a district. You know, the comment was made, in 20 years of teaching, I've never had that happen to me. That's never happened at our school. And so I would love it if the PTO for next year, if they come back in the fall with a similar wish list for your staff at Lakeridge Middle School. I'd love to see if we could partner with a school that's outside our district and stock their lounge at the same time we stock our lounge. So just want to put that out there. If you can be thinking of a district that maybe doesn't have the luxury of parents who are just so willing to donate things, if you could just keep that in the back of your mind for maybe going forward. Okay, so a couple of updates. We have a new PTO logo. If anyone has noticed the newsletter lately, our new logo is very close to our old PTO logo, but we've incorporated some of the colors from the new building, and our PTO is prominent right on top. So pay attention to that. If you see it out and about in all of our communication, you'll get used to seeing that more and more, but I do want to point it out that that's a change for this year. Next thing, we have a Pto Sign Ups that are active now for officers and committee chairs for next year. So pay attention to the newsletter for that sign up genius. That's going to be publicized out and about in multiple places. So anybody who's interested, we would love for you to either contact a current committee chair or officer to find out some information. Go to our PTO website to learn about offices, and consider signing up. We did publicize all of our signups to the 3 elementary 5th grade classes. So those incoming sixth grade parents all have the sign up genius and are aware of ways that they can become involved next year for Lakeridge Middle School. Okay, so the last thing that I have before our treasurer report from Sarah is that every year the Lakeridge Middle School PTO has to review its bylaws, and we need to do that work. We did that work by February. We publicized those proposed changes in our bylaws in the February newsletter, the winter PTO newsletter. They're up on our website. And I'm not going to read over all the proposed changes, but you can go to the website or link through the newsletter to review them for anyone who's interested in reading the PTO bylaws. And we will circle back next month to vote on those changes. So I just want to make everybody aware that next month is a live vote. Okay, that's it for me. And I'd like to move, we're going to try to move kind of quickly through our agenda tonight so that we have plenty of time with Dr. Schultz and with Ryan Fuhrer. So Sarah, take it away for fundraising. And the treasurer's report. Sorry, treasurer's report.
Treasurer's report. I could do both.
Yeah, go for it.
So the treasurer's report, I don't know if it's possible for you to share the budget Jen sent on your screen, or is that too much of a hassle, Monica?
I'm going to try to do that.
So Jen Prager just asked me to cover for her this evening because she's really busy at work, but she sent over the updated budget, and I believe that's posted on the web for folks eventually. It won't be there yet because she just updated it, but we can certainly, I know you're all probably squinting, and we can certainly send it to anyone who wants to look at it in further detail. But the highlights are we continue to receive some parent donations trickling in, and we expect that might have an uptick now that the kids are heading back into the building, and there might even be some wish lists coming out of that. We also have one business sponsor so far, and the upcoming community business campaign is coming up, which could bring in more income, which is great. But we also have had low expenses. We invested in a welcome banner, which I saw on Dr. Schultz's Twitter feed today. Thank you for that awesome picture. And the logo, as Monica mentioned. So that's kind of the high level. I think overall we're in the green for our budget. We were a little concerned with the pandemic that we may run in the red with all of our, like fixed costs like insurance and stuff like that, but the parents have come through for us, which is great. Are there any questions? Or Monica, did I miss anything?
No, not really. Sarah? No. Just flower sales.
Yes, so every spring we sell Al's Garden Center hanging flower baskets, and we're going to be doing that again this year. And if you participated last year, the pandemic happened and it was kind of a bummer because we ended up mailing vouchers to everyone. But this year we are so excited. We get to have our little flower pickup in person in the parking lot outside on May 5th. So the order link is now up on the Parent Club website. Emily, thank you for doing that. And then there will be an email going out this week, I think. Monica, correct me if I'm wrong.
Mhm.
And the orders are due April 21st. And then you'll come pick up your flowers the Wednesday before Mother's Day.
Yep. So we have 3 fundraising items. We have our flower sales that ends on April 21st, right, Sarah? April 21st.
Mhm.
We have a new community partners program, which is an opportunity for local businesses to make a direct donation to Lakeridge Middle School PTO. And this donation is for next school year, not this year. And they will be recognized as sponsors in our newsletters, some of our communication, and it's just a nice opportunity for parents to see businesses that support Lakeridge Middle School PTO, and a little bit of opportunity for those businesses to directly interface or have their name out with our parent population. We don't advertise to our kids, but to our parents, it's a little bit different story in our newsletters. So, okay, the third, Sarah, would be we always have the opportunity for parents to provide a direct donation to PTO. That's throughout the year, that lives on the website. And so that opportunity is always there. Okay. All
And
right.
just one more quick thing, if you don't mind, Monica, I will just add, and this is another little note for Dr. Schultz, and maybe he'll cover this when he speaks later. He's very busy getting kids back in the building, so maybe he hasn't even thought of this. But I know that we like to do our classroom grants in the fall at the beginning of the year, and I very much want to make sure we have the resources for that. But we also really like to try to turn around some of the fundraising in the same year. So I don't know if it's possible, if there are any wish list items that you have, but I'd look forward to hearing from you on that when you speak, if there are anything.
Thanks, Sarah. I'll work to address that as best I can, and you can put me on the spot if I don't. But I appreciate you both asking the question and giving me the out in the same moment. So that was brilliant. Well done.
We all need our outs.
Thanks, Sarah. Hey, Kimi, you are on the agenda here. Do you have anything to report to us about the volunteer signups for offices for next year?
Hi, I just took a glance, and can you hear me?
Now we can hear you. That was a little brutal.
I just took a glance, and it looks like we definitely need to promote as much as possible. We still have quite a few positions open.
Mhm.
I don't know if someone has talked to you, and maybe there's some that I'm not aware of who want to sign up, but otherwise, I would say the majority of positions are still available.
Okay. And we've been out for about a week to 2 weeks now with those signups, so we're early, but certainly we'd like to introduce and vote on our new folks in May. So there is a timeline for signups.
I'm assuming it already went out on social media.
It has, I think it has, right, Julia? Yep.
Okay, I'll keep forwarding.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Katie. Okay, all right. So that was super fast for our business, Dr. Schultz. Are you ready to walk us through the first day of return to in-person learning and a whole bunch of other stuff?
Well, the theme for today is ready or not. Here we go. So I just want to start by echoing Monica's introduction of Ryan. I'm so delighted to be working with her. Certainly we all miss Miss Knapp. who has launched into a very successful spot at Lake Grove and launched their in-person learning there. But it's been amazing to watch Ryan step sort of seamlessly into this role and just jump right in to one of the more challenging schedule situations I've ever experienced and in a decade of middle school. And here comes Ryan, first days in middle school. Here's your first month. We're going to give you some of the hardest schedule challenges we've ever faced. And she has smiled through it all and said, yeah, I think we can do that. Let me ask some questions and we'll figure it out. And she's just been great to work with as we've navigated all of this. And so I've appreciated her really positive attitude, her can-do spirit, and her really good questions. I mean, she knows that there are things that she's still learning and still figuring out. And she's doing a great job of doing that and building strong relationships with staff all at the same time. So it's been just a delight to work with her. Those are some of the things that are top of mind for me as I think about my work with Ryan. But Ryan, I'd love for you to share just briefly, maybe what are a couple of highlights for you in your first, you've been with us a month now, and what a month it has been. So are there a couple highlights you'd be willing to share?
Yeah, it has been a really fast and furious month. I think for me, some of you know the building's amazing. So just getting this experience to come in and be in this brand new building and experience staff coming in for the first time and seeing their learning spaces. And then there's no greater highlight than what today was and seeing those sixth graders enter the building and just their nerves and their excitement and their awe as they walked in and around. It was amazing. It was nice to see some familiar kid faces from my days at Westridge and Hallinan. So that was fun. Also, and then as Kurt said, just getting to know the staff and building those relationships with everyone has been incredible. So you guys know this. It's an incredible staff, kind, generous people. They've been patient with me as I have asked questions and tried to figure things out, and really supportive. So Jenny's shoes are huge to even attempt to fill. So I'm just trying to do my best and help everyone, but it has been such a great welcoming experience. So I'm grateful. So thank you.
Well, we have super appreciated getting to know you, Ryan, and having you jump in. You've done a marvelous job in this first month. I don't think anybody could have asked for a smoother transition during a difficult period. So thank you. And I hope that all of you who are on the Zoom have an opportunity to get to know Ryan, and hopefully in really positive ways as we navigate the spring here and have middle schoolers back in person. Sometimes when the assistant principal calls, that can be a moment of trepidation for parents. So just know that she's real friendly and she's here for your kids and she's here to support you. And she's great to work with. So I'm pleased to welcome Ryan to our team and glad to work with her. There's so much that I can share. And the temptation, of course, as I prepared for tonight, was to think about like, oh my gosh, what are all the things that I can talk about? And there are lots of things, but I want to highlight just a couple of highlights, bright spots that have come up for me in the last few weeks. And then also talk a little bit about budget kinds of things, because I know that is one of the topics of interest as we move through the spring here with PTO for planning for next year and fundraising and all those things. So I'm going to kind of focus on some bright spots in recent news, and then also some budget things in terms of the ways that PTO has supported us and ways that we might support each other moving forward. And then I will also try and leave some space for questions tonight, because I know in every period of transition, we always have times when we want an opportunity to say like, hey, I didn't understand the thing. And there's been lots of communication lately. So no doubt there are some gaps somewhere, and we want to make sure that you get the answers you need tonight. That's part of why we have these meetings, is so that you get access to questions and answer opportunities. So I'm going to see if I can share my screen here, and and then I'll kind of walk through a couple different things that I've been thinking about as I got ready for tonight, and then I'll talk a little bit about budget, and then we'll jump to some questions. And I will confess, I'm not great about watching the chat as I talk, so it's okay if you want to put questions in the chat. I will go back through and look at them when we get to the question period, but know that I'm not gonna track those well. So it's also okay to interrupt me, Monica or others, if
Yeah,
I need to.
maybe I'll monitor the chat for you a little bit.
Okay, that'd be
Okay.
great. So hopefully you can all see my screen now here. I'm sharing, this is a shot that we shared on Twitter, and it is the first day back for staff, as this is our Friday work day. And the building has been available to staff for all of the fall to work from and to come in and access spaces and to teach from if they want to. But really, the first day we had a big cohort of staff back in the building was Friday last week, and it was a very exciting, energetic day. Obviously, it was focused on preparing to welcome our students who are moving to the hybrid in-person instruction. It was focused on welcoming and getting ready to welcome those kids. But it really also was an opportunity for us to gather as a staff in an in-person capacity, kind of for the first time this year. And it was some folks' first time walking into the building. And so they felt really supported and really welcomed by the kindness of PTO with your treats in the snack room, in the staff room, and the new dishware, and all the other ways that PTO was so supportive, as Monica mentioned at the outset of this meeting. But it was also an opportunity for us to do some things. Our leadership team got a plant for every teacher as kind of a housewarming or class warming gift. So teachers all got to select a plant that they could take to their space that they're teaching from, whether they're teaching in person or online. And so some teachers have a plant now that they've moved into their online teaching location, as they continue to support and connect kids in our online program. They are staying part of our staff in that way too. So that was a great day. Friday was a really exciting day for us, and it was also the transition day for schedules and other things. And I know that has not been without bumps. We have had some challenges in making schedule changes and other things, and we've appreciated parents kind of bearing with us as we figure out how to navigate any changes in format for kids, because that is one of the great challenges right now as we look at moving some kids to in-person instruction. If kids weren't scheduled for that from the start of the year, the two schedules didn't necessarily have to talk to each other, because our in-person instruction schedule is built around these paired cohorted classes that you've seen me tweeting and taking photos of today. So language arts and social studies classes that are paired, and wellness and science classes that are paired. And kids come to one classroom during the day and stay in that space, and the teachers actually swap. So I'm switching over now to our Instagram story from today, and I'm just going to flash through some of the pictures. So this is a photo of one of our morning cohort groups working, I think, with Miss Drawley in North 202, I think, is the classroom here. And you can see that the kids are spread out and everybody's got their own space, but those kids are in there for two classes. And then Miss Drawley teaches her class, and then another teacher comes in and teaches the next period. Here's a different class. This is in South 217, where one of our other teachers was teaching this morning, and a different group of kids. But kids came into the building today and really were excited and nervous. That was the chorus we heard from every kid, is I'm excited and I'm nervous. But I was really impressed for our sixth graders walking into middle school for the very first time. Kids, almost every single student I talked to said, yes, I know what class I'm going to. I'm going to room S202, or I'm going to S301. And I know that I am entering through the yellow entrance, and I've watched the entry video. And so kids and families really clearly did a really nice job of preparing for the day and being ready. Our parents were great about arriving only 15 minutes before the start of the day so that we didn't have lots of kids queued up and waiting. And at the end of the day, when we asked folks to queue up in the parking lot, 6th grade parents were amazing there and following our directions. And the weather, of course, cooperated really nicely. So I hope that continues for our 7th and 8th grade first days. And one thing I will say is our parking lot is going to be a busy place, and our Jean Road is going to be a busy place because construction is ongoing. We only have one entry and exit now from our parking lot. So it's going to require patience. It's going to require real close attention to what's going on around you. So stay off those cell phones. And we thank you in advance for coming at it with a spirit of we're in this together. And at the end of the day, kids headed home and we're great about moving through the space in ways that were appropriate and socially distanced and kind of amazing. And the whole day today went in a really positive way. I will also highlight, I'm not going to show this video right now because it's 3 minutes long, but if you have not seen this on our Twitter feed yet, and I'm going to share it in Newsflash again tomorrow, Mr. Benedict and Mr. Langford, they last year when we first went into quarantine, they did a series of sort of rap battles where they each produced videos for their classes, and you may or may not have tracked that they were having this sort of competition for the kids to enjoy. But if you haven't watched their version of A Whole New World from Aladdin, it is so worth your time. I'm just gonna tease it a little bit. I'm just gonna give you a little teaser here. This is Mr. Langford pulling up in his car on Friday. Here's Mr. Benedict.
You know, we can't hear them, or I can't. Can anybody?
That's all you get for right now. I'm not gonna share the rest.
I gotcha.
You're gonna
Okay, I
have to
see what you're doing.
Yeah, see what I did there? So you want to see the rest of this video, I promise you. They just did a dynamite job. And actually we saw them filming on Friday as people were getting ready and doing things. And nobody really tried. Everybody was sort of like, well, what are those guys doing? But nobody really paid a ton of attention to what was going on. And so when they sent it out to staff on Monday, folks were just elated. It was a great gift that they did for staff and students. And I hope you take a minute to take a look at it. Also, I'll highlight, if you have not looked at our reopening information guide that we shared out in a special news flash last week, and on Twitter and on our Instagram and on our website, it's kind of everywhere. And it's a big, long document, but we tried to make a really thorough guide so that families would feel like, okay, I know what to expect, and I know what information I need to be aware of and I need to help my child with. So if you do have a child transitioning back to hybrid in the days ahead, I would encourage you to take a look at that reopening planning guide. We've put a lot of information in there, and there are reinforcements as kids come into the building too. So this is a slide deck that we have up and looping in the building right now, welcoming kids and also highlighting some of the things that are in that reopening planning guide, like our schedule, reminders about what do you need to do before you come to school, reminders about how do I find my way if I get lost. And of course, there's lots of adults to help kids to navigate and those sorts of things. Guidelines around masks and social distancing, all those protocols and safety procedures that we have to follow in order to be open in person with kids, but also in order to help kids feel safer as they move into this space. So we appreciate folks paying attention to those guidelines and reinforcing them with their kids, and we'll keep communicating that information out to everybody as well. That was a lot of words for me to share. Just really quickly, before I jump into budget information, are there questions related to things around reopening, hybrid transition, the work that we've done in the last few weeks after the March decision to move back to in-person prior to spring break? Any questions that have come up?
We have a question from Reiko in the chat about volunteers at the building. So we're, folks are used to being able to go into the building and work the school store or deliver an art lit lesson. So what are our new rules around that for the spring?
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is one that I think we will see continue to evolve as the spring goes on. Initially, our guidance from the state and from OHA and from the district is that it is essential volunteers only, is the language that we have been given. And so we are really significantly limiting parent and public access to the building so that we can get it open and get kids into the building. That has really been the priority and the goal through the fall and to now. And so as we get kids into the building and we start to watch metrics hopefully stay stable and continue to decline, my hope is that we'll be able to start to implement more volunteer opportunities and open up things like the school store, start to have conversations about volunteering in the library and in other capacities. Right now, we've been really pretty restrictive about what parents we allow into the building and what access we allow for volunteers in general, simply because every additional person we add to the building is another person that we have to make sure follows our protocols and that we include in our contact tracing and other things. So it really has been extremely limited up to this point to support the return of kids. And as we get more attuned to how it's working with kids in the building, our hope is that we'll be able to open that up more, but always with safety and the guidelines from OHA as the first priority. I know everyone's really eager to see the building. I'm eager to show it off. Lord knows it is an amazing space, and we want you to see it and celebrate it with us. And we're going to do that just as soon as we're able to in ways that fall within the guidelines.
So we have, Tamara, do you want to ask your question or do you?
Sure, I can ask it. I just want to know, how are you guys addressing content holes? I've been told on multiple kids who've switched from LO online to hybrid or vice versa, the teachers are not in the same place in the curriculum. How are you addressing that?
That's a great question, and it is one of the challenges of switching streams from online to hybrid, because folks have been moving at slightly different paces, largely because they're trying to stay with the group of kids that they're working with. So when kids have elected to have a schedule switch, it has created some gaps. And in these first days, as we make the initial transition, the priority really is first and foremost on building relationships with those students and helping them make that transition into their new class as seamlessly as possible, because it is disruptive to students learning to make a transition from one teacher to another teacher, from one group of students to another group of students. And so what I think you'll see in these first few days, especially before spring break, but also probably in the first couple of days when we come back from spring break, will be teachers are going to stay focused on relationship and community building in their classes. As they do that, one of the things that teachers are also doing is they're doing some assessment and collaboration with their colleagues and looking at, okay, where were you in your class? How was this student doing in your class? What's next for them? Getting to know that student. And then as kids get into that coursework in that week after spring break, and especially in the back half of that week, I think that's when we'll see teachers starting to adapt curriculum and adjust to either regroup kids or to address gaps that may exist, those sorts of things. The board did make a change to our calendar and extend third quarter, which all our teachers are very encouraged about, because it does allow us to address some of the transition time, but also to address some of the days that we lost early in the fall with the smoke from the wildfires and the potential for evacuations, and also these ice days in the winter here. First and third term courses were really disproportionately impacted by those. So the change in term length, I think, will be a benefit as well as our teachers adjust the curriculum. But the reality, Tamara, as I think about your question, is we're going to be addressing gaps and holes and inconsistent growth from student to student well into next year. I think this is not something that we're going to fix in the first few weeks of third quarter. It's not something we're going to fix in fourth quarter. It's really going to be an adjustment as we move into next year even, and look at, okay, how do we need to adjust the scope and sequence of our courses to look at what did kids actually learn last year and what do we need to adjust? So if I'm a sixth grader moving into seventh grade, there may be some things that historically we've expected. Every sixth grader knows this when they start on the first day of seventh grade, that this year we didn't get there. And so that'll be some of our summer work and our summer planning time as we look at scope and sequence of curriculum and making sure that we're set up to support kids moving forward in ways that address gaps that may have been created this year because of some of the circumstances that were beyond all of our control.
So Kurt, Sarah put a question in the chat. You know, we've had sixth graders transition first time into middle school today, and our eighth graders will be transitioning away from middle school in the spring. So I know that the high school hasn't heard decisions around graduation and what might happen, and around our celebration. Do you have any update for us about what we should plan for as PTO?
Well, we certainly want to celebrate our eighth graders. We are very proud of them for everything they've done in middle school, and they deserve to be celebrated as they exit middle school at the end of the year. And this is not the eighth grade year that I think any of us had in mind when we welcomed them in as sixth graders. I think, you know, if you'd polled any of us at the point in time, I don't think any one of us could have predicted that, yeah, the final year and a half of middle school is going to be spent primarily online. I mean, what a wild prediction that would have been to make just a few short years ago. And yet here we are. And so I hesitate to put too fine a detail on how we will celebrate kids in eighth grade as they make the transition, because we're watching a lot of things right now. You know, as we bring kids back, we're watching the metrics really closely, and we are hopeful about the continued distribution of vaccines, and we're hopeful about declining case counts. We are hopeful about high school's return to in-person, that can be done safely. And we're gonna continue to get guidance and updates from OHA and ODE as we move through the spring. I think we will be watching closely what guidance happens for high schools about their end of year celebrations for seniors, and likely some of our plans in terms of celebration and other things for our eighth graders will be shaped by some of that guidance that comes out for our high school colleagues. And we're also looking at that around middle school activities. OSAA has issued guidance for high school sports, and they've issued guidance for high school activities like band and choir and orchestra and other things. And they have not, we don't have the same organization or structure at middle school to guide us. And so what our practice has been so far is to really kind of watch the high school guidance and then figure out, okay, how do we now apply this to our middle school context? So one of the things I think you'll see as we move into fourth quarter is we'll start to look at, okay, the high schools have started back some sports, they've started back some activities, they've started back some extracurricular activities like band rehearsals or band performances in outdoor settings, those kinds of things. We'll try and think about how could that translate to middle school in ways that would be age appropriate and within the guidance from OHA and ODE. So all that is to say, we definitely want to celebrate our 8th graders. We're going to do that in some fashion. And at minimum, I think you could anticipate that we will at least do a celebration kind of like the drive-through celebration we did last year for our 8th graders up at Lakeridge High School, where kids were able to turn in their Chromebooks and textbooks and other things, be clapped and cheered by their teachers, and have a photo opportunity in front of the doors of their new high school. I think that would be a bare minimum, because we did that with kind of maximum restrictions. And I don't think our restrictions will be the same this spring. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do some things that feel really good and also are able to be done in ways that are safe and consistent with public health guidelines.
I know it's a shift, to transition away from big celebrations to something smaller, but there was one comment made recently in a coordinating council meeting that I just thought I would pass along to everybody, and that is that part of the guidance is that you're safe in terms of COVID if you're passing with people within a certain amount of time, a certain number of minutes. And what Lake Oswego Junior High typically does, they walk across the street. Like, it's a real visceral sort of activity. They leave the junior high physically and walk across the street to the high school, but that walk is longer than the recommended number of minutes. And so that tradition may have to be adjusted too. So we're not the only ones if we have to do something different this year. It's across the board. And I just want to make sure people know that.
I just had a quick follow-up question to that on that topic. Dr. Schultz, how many 8th grade students are currently enrolled? I'm going to put you on the spot.
And I confess, I don't know the number off the top of my head. Sarah, it's fewer than 300. It's a smaller class than we have had for the past couple of years, but it's more than 250. So I've got it within 50 kids there. And so it is a sizable cohort from a public health standpoint. I mean, that's the thing that will be the challenge as we look at group size numbers and things like that, because we do have to think about, okay, so if every student brings a parent, what's the implication of this plan or this scenario? And as we move through the spring, I think we'll get clearer and clearer guidance from the state and public health about what we're allowed to do and what we're able to do. Certainly, there are some opportunities potentially for some outdoor celebrations that might allow us to bring more folks together than any kind of indoor celebration would. But there are also, we've learned a lot about ways that we can make celebrations feel personal and meaningful, even as we deal with social distance. I'm thinking about all the birthday drive-bys I've done with my own kids for their friends in the past year. And initially I was pretty skeptical about that, but it's kind of neat to have a parade of your friends come by your house and wave at you out of the sunroof. So
we've got a question here. Will there be school pictures and yearbooks this year?
It's a great question. And Mr. Kelly and I have talked a lot about what's the right kind of yearbook this year. And our answer in consultation with the students in the publications class is a different kind of yearbook. It's going to look different than it has in the past, because everything about school has looked different than it has in the past. And I'm excited about what the publications classes are planning. They're working hard on what will be a pretty robust magazine of our pandemic school year, and it will be more stories and more pictorial narratives than we have seen in a traditional yearbook context, where, on a yearbook, often a group of kids is assigned an event in the school year, and they do a page just with photos of that event and maybe some brief captions. And I think what you'll see this year in the commemorative magazine that Publications is putting together is a deeper dive into some of the ways in which this year has impacted kids and changed how they've experienced school. And I'm excited about what they're going to produce. And it's not something that we're going to ask kids to pay for. It's something that we're going to provide to all students. So every student will get a copy of this to kind of commemorate the year. And the other thing that we know is because we don't have the opportunity to do in-person photos of every child this year in the same way that we do in a typical year, we didn't want to try and publish pages with every student's photo, because we were very concerned that some of our students who are not able to get to school for an in-person school photo for whatever reason, whether they're not comfortable or not able to do transportation or what have you, we didn't want them to feel left out of a yearbook. And so we are going to produce, in conjunction with the physical magazine that we're going to give kids, we'll produce a digital compendium that will go along with it, that we're going to try and make sure that every student gets represented digitally in that format. So we'll have kids submitting pictures, and we'll have some picture opportunities for our in-person students. And it'll be an opportunity for everybody to make some contributions to the yearbook. So I think after we move past spring break and into the, especially into fourth quarter here, you can watch for some opportunities to contribute to that in our listserv and in Newsflash, and we'll be pushing that out to classes as well.
Great. Okay. Any other questions from anyone before we move into our financial discussion with Dr. Schultz? Okay.
All right.
You're ready.
Well, thanks for those good questions, everyone. I appreciate it. And I want to now talk about some of the amazing things that PTO has supported over the past really 2 years, because one of the things that it's easy to get lost in our discussion of this year is that we really ended last year without being able to celebrate the really cool things that PTO did last year, that we were able to purchase, because we got to use some of that stuff, but not all of it. And so I wanted to start with some of the support that we received in the 1920 school year. And then I'll talk also about some of the things that in 2021 we have been doing and you have been doing and supporting. And then we can think into the future about, okay, so now we're in this new facility and we've got a new school launched. Where do we go next? And what goals do we set in terms of collaboration and fundraising support as we move forward? And so what I did is I went and took a look at what are the places that we have spent with donation dollars in the past couple of years. And one of the places that we supported last year, and this may or may not ring a bell for folks, was bridge building supplies for our architecture class. They were able to build some really cool bridges that they tested in person, and that was through a PTO grant. Additionally, we subscribe to Scholastic's Upfront magazine, which has been a supplement to our social studies classes. And if you look back through, if you Google Upfront magazine and look back through the issues that happened over the last year and a half, what a time to be subscribed to this really middle school friendly student resource. It's been a great resource for kids, both before we were out in quarantine last year and also digitally this year. It's been a support, and there's been a lot going on in the world of current events, and it's been a great resource for our social studies classes. Additionally, we purchased 5 Chook ball sets, and we haven't had a chance to use these as much as we hope to, but this is something that our wellness team, our PE team, is super excited about, and that kids really like this game. And we got them just before we went into quarantine. We got them in February last year, and so we got to set them up. And I think the PE folks used them once or maybe twice with the PE classes last year. But as we come back now to in-person instruction this spring for our hybrid students, we may be able to use some of these resources that were fundraised for and donated by PTO in individual contexts, and eventually we hope that we can play the game of chook ball in more collaborative team sports kinds of ways at some point down the road here. The other thing that happened again last year before we went into quarantine was we did have an amazing clinic with Three Leg Torso. This band came in and they did a performance at Lakeridge High School with the orchestra up there, but they also came and did a day-long workshop with our orchestra classes. And I shared some video on Twitter last year when they were here performing, and it was just so cool to watch this professional band work with our student musicians, both in the middle school classroom and then also in the high school performance context. I mean, they're a hilarious group of guys anyway, so it's a fun and funny bunch of musicians that were great with kids, but really excellent music too. And so that was a great opportunity for our students in orchestra. And PTO also fundraised dollars for clinicians to work with our band and choir groups. We've done a little bit of that digitally this year, but anticipate doing more as we move back to in-person instruction in the future, especially in our new performance spaces and rehearsal spaces that we have in the new building. Another major donation area for PTO in the past was our drama headsets, which were used in numerous productions last year, and we anticipate them being used really to very good effect in the new space as well. Mr. Dunwoody had the stage lights on and the music going as kids were walking through today. So even though kids aren't experiencing in-person theater classes right now, kids who came in to our south second floor classrooms through the green entry today got to see the new stage with the lights on and hear the music as they walked in. So that was a pretty exciting moment for some of those students who walked through the building today. Another item that I will highlight is our Breaking Down the Walls workshops, which we did do in the days just before school closed. We had workshops for all our 7th graders, now our 8th graders, where we were talking about breaking down the walls right before we physically broke down the walls of the old Beluga building. It was those days were great opportunities for kids to share with each other and share with their teachers and have kind of some of the last in-person bonding moments that we had as a class happened in those 7th grade workshops. And that was a great support that we've done for the last few years, but that we did just before we went into quarantine and distance learning. Now I want to turn the corner here and think beyond March of last year to some of the ways that PTO funds have been used to support some of the distance learning that we've been doing. One of the things that many teachers use their teacher grants for was to subscribe to digital learning tools that enhanced their digital teacher superpowers. That's one of the ways I've been talking about what our teachers did this fall is they all built new teacher superpowers that they didn't have before. And one of those has been using a lot of technology tools that maybe weren't part of their repertoire prior to the launch of distance learning. And one of those tools that our math department in particular has used is a tool called Go Formative, which has been really supported by PTO funds and has been an excellent tool for our math teachers to get real-time information about what are kids actually learning right now. And that allows them to then figure out, okay, what do I plan? What do I do next? Another supplement that we've added this year on the curriculum side is Character Strong, which is a district adoption. And we've been pushing that out in weekly lessons from our counseling team, and that those lessons happen on Wednesday and rotate through the different periods. But we've also been able to send folks to supplementary workshops and get additional resources using some PTO grant funds as well. And those funds have really been beneficial for our staff who are learning how to use this tool, both in district trainings that they've received, but then also being able to dive deeper with additional resources and more time and more focused work with the Character Strong folks. The other thing that has been essential to our success this year in distance learning has been support for distance teaching setups. And some of those setups, we provided district technology and sent things home with teachers, but there are also other realities of trying to make a learning space happen in your home office. And PTO funds have really been an important asset as we've looked at how do we support teachers in making their home spaces effective classroom spaces for our students. And so that has been an appreciated support. And as we've moved into the physical space of the new building, there have been enrichments and enhancements that have been really important. I mentioned some of those at the outset. When teachers walked into the new staff lounge, there were plates and new forks and new flatware and new all kinds of new stuff to help them feel like, oh, this place that I've moved into isn't a sterile new construction building. This is a place that feels like it's going to be my teaching home and my.
I just want to point out
home.
that the plates all match. Wow, that's
right.
new.
I know. It really has been very exciting to move into the space and to have PTO's support to make it feel like a space that is purposeful and well appointed. And I think that's a great thing. Additionally, the support for the library has been much appreciated from PTO as we've added graphic novels and novels for our Spanish immersion program in Spanish so that students can read at their independent reading level in Spanish, but read novels that are high interest as well. So kids can check out books for independent reading. Displays for the library that we're using both in the previous library space and also now in the new library space. Really being able to make the library space an appealing spot. If you talk to Kari Reed, you don't have to talk very long before you start hearing her talk about, okay, well, how do I make sure that kids have a good shopping experience or good browsing experience when they walk through the library? She really thinks like a bookstore owner and wants to get the right book in the right kids' hands, and has done a great job of supporting that digitally with our library pickups and curbside service and those kinds of things. But also she's done a tremendous job of organizing the new space and getting it ready for kids while still supporting distance learning library use. And there are so many other things. Sarah mentioned the teacher grants earlier, and I want to kind of come back to those. Those $150 teacher grants are such a valuable resource to our teachers. They get excited about them every year. They almost every single staff member uses every single dollar to very good effect in enriching their classroom experience, whether it's enrichment supplies that go directly to students or enhancements for their classroom, like new posters or new shared tools that they can use in the classroom, or enhancements to particular curriculum areas. Those PTO grants go a long way toward allowing teachers to really tailor the classroom experience to their students. So that brings me to this last slide, and then I'll take questions that you might have related to budget, but about what's next. What do we think about next as we have this brand new space? We're still doing a lot of distance learning, and we're also starting to support some in-person learning. How do we figure out where do we go now? And as I think about it, I think about a couple of different areas that I think will be really essential. One, we need to think about how are students going to play in this new building? How do we make it fun to be physically in person at school? We are still very much part of a construction site as we watch our parking lot get finished this spring. But as we wrap that up this summer and the playground gets installed and we start thinking about, okay, now the construction is done, I think that will be a moment where we can really look around and say, do we have all the fun we need to have for middle school? Do we have all of the things that really maximize this space and help it feel good to kids when they're here on campus in person? And that might mean additional enhancements to our playground facilities once they're built. And it might mean some new foosballs for our amazing foosball tables that PTO and our ASB purchased a couple of years ago. The tables are in great shape, but we frequently need to refresh some elements of that. It could be things to use in our new courtyard that, we've never had an outdoor space as amazing as the one that we currently have. And so I'm interested to see how kids are going to start to use that space and what that space asks for from kids as we think about their ability to hang and use that space effectively. And also, this is kind of a combination of student play and enrichment across disciplines. I think there's an opportunity south of the science wing of our building for what could be a really cool garden that students could get engaged in and students could get involved in. And I know, we've got a lot of folks who have experience with our elementary schools and getting student garden programs started. I think we've got kind of an ideal space and location for a potential future garden. And so that's a space that I imagine students spending some really meaningful time in, and also being a space that could enrich curriculum moving forward. And I think those are things that will be really strong opportunities. Additionally, I think there's some opportunities to support our arts programs, our performing arts in particular. The pandemic has been really difficult for our performing arts students and for our performing arts programs. We've got a fabulous new facility for those programs into the future, but it's been a hard year. People don't sign up for choir to sing by themselves into their Zoom camera. People don't sign up for band to play the tuba alone. That's just not why you sign up to do that thing. And in the same way that you don't sign up to do drama by yourself most of the time. And so as we move back toward in-person activities like that, I think there will be some need to infuse additional life into those performing arts programs. And one place that I see as a particular area of support or need will be for our choir. We've got an amazing new choir room. They have had a very challenging year that Mr. Esbel has done an amazing job of supporting kids and helping them stay connected and feel connected and make beautiful music, honestly, via distance. When we are able to bring kids back together and sing together in this new choir space, how cool would it be if we could have a baby grand piano in that space? And right now we have a nice upright piano, and that has supported our program really well in the past. But we would use a baby grand piano really well in our choir program. We would use it with our musicals. Our jazz band and orchestra programs could both use that in performance as well in our new performance spaces. So there's, I think, some opportunity for some student performance support in that capacity that might really enhance those programs and be another draw back into the arts after what has been a really challenging year for our arts programs. And I think, we're still not sure what next year looks like in those programs. And so that's one of the places that is an area of focus in our conversation, our planning conversation is about how do we make sure that kids stay connected to the arts that have been such a rich part of middle school at Lakeridge for so long, and that we want to keep kids connected to. And this has been a tough year for those groups of kids and those relationships. So those are the kinds of things that I'm thinking about, and that we're talking about as a staff, and kind of directions that our brains are going in. And we want to partner with you as we think about, is that the right stuff from where parents sit too? And are those things that folks can get excited about and that we can work together on? Or is there more to this conversation than we need to consider? So lots of me talking. I'm going to stop again and take
a few questions.
Questions. Yeah, fire away.
So just for clarity for people who may be new to how we do the our funding for programs like this, like, thank you so much, first of all, because this is tremendous to see what happened with our funds last year. As I was looking back through some of the notes from last year's PTO meetings, what we had listed, we allocated $12,000 for student experience, $5,000 for the library, and $3,000 for arts and culture. And so could you just walk us just a tiny bit through the calendar and timeline of how we as a PTO and Lakeridge Middle School, how we collaborate on determining the ask, determining the dollar amounts, and then when those things kick into action. So you started obviously for next year. This is our first conversation about potential items for next year that you might need, or potential needs, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
So just for anybody who's not as familiar with how we normally do that and when it pops up, what month we talk about those things.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So we often start these conversations in the spring as we look ahead to next year. And as we start to build out calendar for the coming year, we also build out our budgets, our building budgets and our ASB budgets. And we look at, okay, what are the funds that we have in our school dollars that we can use to support student programs and student experience and student learning, and how do we maximize the use of those dollars? And then when there are places where we say, gosh, we can do these programs, and here's our calendar of events and learning activities for students, then it's an opportunity for us to say to PTO, we've got this plan. Here are the things that we're going to do. And now these are the kinds of things that would make this plan even better, or that would put icing on the cake in addition to where we already are. So if I think about the $3,000 that you're talking about from last year's budget, where we supported our performing arts, we have a tremendous performing arts program. Our teachers do an amazing job. Those additional dollars, though, went to things like the Three-Leg Torso concert, where we could say, okay, our kids are having an amazing music experience. They're going to produce some really quality music together. They're going to do some quality concerts and do some solid musical learning together as students in our program. What could we do to make that even better? Well, for $1,000 toward orchestra, we can bring in this musical group to collaborate with our students. They can have, professional musicians working in the classroom with them for a full day, and then get to collaborate on a concert piece with those musicians who perform regularly here in the Portland metro area and across the country. What a cool opportunity for them to see that, that an orchestra program is bigger than me playing the violin in 7th grade. It really is about a lifelong relationship with both a potential career, but also with a community that celebrates music and that gets connected and engaged. And so it's that kind of thing that PTO dollars really help us do. And it gives us the opportunity then to talk in the spring about what are the focal areas that we might choose to fundraise in. So when I talk about a potential garden or something like that, that's going to take planning. It's going to take time. It's going to take volunteer energy. It's going to take some collaborations, probably with some professionals, to get supplies and get things built. And we want to make sure that we build it into connections with the learning that kids are doing in their classes across the year. So I want a chance to talk with our science team about, hey, are there places in the curriculum as you plan the year next year that we could align with this garden opportunity? So this is absolutely the right time for us to be thinking about where do we go next, and whether that's using some current year dollars, but also thinking toward setting ourselves up for fundraising efforts in the early fall next year, so that we can raise dollars early and put them to use with a plan in the school year next year.
And so when your staff is, what is the process that staff comes to you with ideas for those holes and needs that they might like to see? Because you as a principal would have perhaps a different set of items that you're interested in than maybe one of your teachers. So how does that all come together and mesh together to create the list that then comes to PTO?
Yeah, so I always start with the dollars that we're allocated from the state as the first place of funding that we look for any teacher project. So if there's something that teachers come to me and say, hey, I really want to do this, we're going to start by spending our school budgets and figuring out what are the right ways to use those dollars to maximum effect. Often those go for standard in the classroom kinds of experiences and curriculum resources and those kinds of things. And it also is the primary source of any teacher time, any staff time, that all of the time dollars that come out of our budget are all driven by building budgets. And then when we've identified that, okay, so this particular project or this particular idea is going to take more than that, that's when we start looking for, okay, so who do we need to collaborate with? How do we figure out a way to make that work? And one of the things that I say over and over to staff is, that I want them to generate ideas, and I want them to think about stuff that we haven't done that we could do, and kind of dream in a lot of directions, so that we can then talk about, as a leadership team, as a staff leadership team, how do we support that? Is there a way that we can do that with building dollars, or do we need to make that a broader priority? And we make our priority list in that way, but always trying to align it to our strategic plan and the areas of focus that we have for our own school-wide growth. So when we think about the kinds of things that we want to do, we want to make sure that we're still engaging kids in meaningful ways, in meaningful activities, and focusing our energies on creating experiences that align with our mission, vision, and values.
Okay, just a couple. We have two questions from the chat, and then I have one request. For anybody who doesn't know what breaking down the walls is, if you could just explain to any of our folks what those workshops actually are designed to do.
Yeah, Breaking Down the Walls is a facilitated half-day workshop for 7th graders that we've done for the past couple of years with Phil Boyd's group out of California, that they come in and they work on positive culture building with schools across the nation. And they are kind of uniquely able to come in and build relationships with kids in a really fun way, and to facilitate kids building positive relationships with each other. And they do that through kind of playing some games to start, but then having kids share stories in ways that are safe, that are structured, and that help them think about, okay, how do my relationships and my conversations with other kids, how do I kind of break down walls that I might put up in my normal life, right? If I didn't know somebody else's story, I might assume a number of things about them. And that's a natural human inclination, but it's also very much a middle school inclination. And one of the things that we know is that when kids get to the middle of middle school, they get to this place of, they're no longer the sixth grader who's trying to figure it all out and figure out what's going on, where do I go next, and how do I do this middle school thing. And they don't have that feeling that eighth graders have of like, yeah, I got this wired. I got this, I got this down. I'm thinking about high school. I'm on my way out. Seventh graders are kind of uniquely positioned to lead from the middle and to think about, okay, what do I want my legacy for middle school to be? And that really has been the focus of these workshops, is to help seventh graders at that pivotal moment, right at the hinge point of middle school, to think about, okay, I'm now at a place where I can be a leader and a shaper of our student culture. What do I want that to be? And, when I think about that, I think one of the outcomes we see is we see kids come out of those days of program, and they start getting engaged in student leadership. They apply for becoming BC leaders or student ambassadors. We've got students tomorrow morning who are going to join in our equity action team, which is our staff equity group. Our student equity group comes on board tomorrow morning to meet with them and talk about the kinds of things that they hope to see and hope to move forward as a student leadership team in that area. There's just a lot of really cool opportunities that, if we start that conversation in seventh grade with kids, as they walk into eighth grade, they really start to shape the student culture in really positive ways. And that has been the strength of Breaking Down the Walls in the past couple of years. And while we haven't worked on that this year because of our distance, it is something that we might consider into the future when we are back in person.
Right. So next year, those seventh graders who missed it this year might get to participate in that.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the conversations that we're having about a number of kind of those annual activities. We're talking with our science team about, okay, so our sixth graders this year missed outdoor school. How do we build some kind of outdoor learning experience into seventh grade that's appropriate for them, but that also addresses some of the cool memory making opportunities of the sixth grade outdoor school experience. And I think, we'll be having a similar conversation around, okay, our seventh graders missed their seventh grade year in our building. What are the ways that as they move into eighth grade, we can build some of those opportunities in?
Great. We've got a couple questions. So Jody, I think, has the first question here about, Jody, are you there? You want to?
Yes, I'm unmuted. I'm sorry, I have a bit of a cold, so if I sound croaky, apologize. So I've looked up both of these programs, the subscription for the library as well as the Breaking Walls. Online, both of those programs suggest they are for high school level students. Can you explain how it was decided that this was appropriate for middle school children?
Yeah, Breaking Down the Walls has both middle school and high school programming, and so their high school programming is designed more as whole school kind of programming, and they do kind of a leadership workshop with a small group of student leaders, and then move that into a whole school assembly format, and they structure that a little bit differently. The Breaking Down the Walls program that we have done in the last couple of years has been tailored to middle school students and has been really focused on a group of about 80 seventh graders at a time. They come in for a half day and work together with their teachers in the Breaking Down the Walls experience. And so it's a different opportunity than the one that is most commonly done by the Breaking Down the Walls group, but we've had a relationship with that team of facilitators for a number of years.
So there's an actual curriculum that parents can see of what Breaking Down the Walls is for middle school, or this is something that has been just created as an off of the high school actual published program?
Yeah, it's not a curriculum per se. It's more of a workshop experience that happens in a half day. And so typically when we have that, experience, we share a framework ahead of time with families and with kids about here's what to expect, here's the kinds of activities that we'll be doing, and give folks a sense of what that is. And if there are families that have questions or concerns about it, I often will talk with them about it and make sure they feel like their questions are addressed ahead of that. Yeah.
Okay. Jody, do you have any follow up? If not, Amanda has the next question, but she left our chat. Her question.
I'd also asked about the magazine subscription because that's clearly stated as a high school content.
The Upfront magazine?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's used primarily in our 8th grade social studies classes as a supplemental resource. And so our 8th grade social studies teachers have a subscription to that they can use in ways that tie in with their current events curriculum and other elements of 8th grade social studies as appropriate.
Okay.
Okay. So next question, Amanda had to leave, but the question is, what about a sensory room for students to go relax and chill, or adaptable seating like pedal desks, exercise balls, or bean bags?
Yeah, those are great questions. We have a number of features designed into this building that are much more student friendly in terms of student flexible seating and other kinds of things. All of our learning studio pairs have 12 wobble stools in those rooms, and every student chair in the whole building actually has some movement built into it. I was talking to a group of 6th graders today, and one of my questions was like, hey, how do you guys like the chairs? Because we haven't had chairs like this before. Historically, it's been the like 1960s melamine rock hard chair that like has no give at all. And they were really durable, don't get me wrong, but it's not the most comfortable place to sit and learn and work as a student every day. And so it was exciting to see kids start to use some of those things that are already built into the space. I think as we start to really live in the building, there may be some additional pieces that we want to think about or invest in. There are soft seating pieces that we have in the building that we can't use right now because of our COVID cleaning protocols, but that will be moving back into student circulation once we're able to more fully use the building. So I think certainly there could be some conversation about continued support for flexible seating and various kinds of sensory elements. But one of the things that we really did design this building around was helping have a variety of ways in which the physical space of the school helped kids feel calm and connected to each other and connected to the outdoors, all of which are research supported ways to make school feel like a good place to be every day. And I love working in our new building. The natural light everywhere is just kind of amazing. But Dr. Sheely was on campus today. She's our assistant superintendent and was there to help support our transition. And she said, Kurt, I don't think I want to work anywhere else. Can I just work here every day? Because the borrowed office she sat in for her Zoom meetings today, she said, I had trouble paying attention because the view out my window is so nice. I love it here. And that really has been a lot of the staff and student response has been like, wow, I didn't realize it could feel so good to be at school. And so we're eager for a different moment in time when we're not in a global pandemic. So that we can really use the space to its fullest potential.
Okay, we have two. Rieko, do you want to talk about the die cut machine? I can.
Yes, yeah, it's, because I have opportunity to use it, and then now there's a new school, and if you have a new die cut machine, you can use a lot for making a sign and everything, and I thought it was a pretty useful item, and I was wondering, did you purchase it or not? Just curious. It's not biggie, but anyway.
Yeah, we haven't purchased one yet, but it is something that we have had some conversation about, maybe doing, if not a die cut machine, maybe a Cricut or laser cutter, kind of a tool, so that we could cut a variety of different things based on specific needs. And certainly there's a lot of great tools out there. So I imagine that's something that we'll continue to look at, especially as we start using the facility more and recognizing that, like, oh, we want to make this, and we want to make it out of vinyl, or we want to make it out of canvas, and then finding the right tool for that, I think could be something that we pursue into the future.
Yeah, if you want to, you can just start it really like a, cheap scale, whatever, just a basic. And then if you have more money, you can like that. But yeah, I think it's useful item. Anyway.
That's an interesting thought too, Rieko, because of the pandemic, Dr. Schultz hasn't really built us you have used some of the funds this year. We've bought some things to support staff and students with our current budget. And, we are raising money this year. And so a lot of this discussion is around next year's budget, which is great. Like, I love that we're having this conversation so early. But then also with things like a die cut machine, or are there any things on your list that could be potentially like a turnaround this spring that, or is it just too early in the getting kids back into the building process to think about that? We are going to do a flower sale, and we will probably have some more funds to offer.
Yeah, as we have more staff in the building every day, I think some of those needs are going to become more visible to me. One of the challenges of kind of being one of only a handful of staff who are consistently working at the building this fall is it's really hard to identify what you need in different rooms when you're not using those rooms. And so I do think there will be some things that kind of come to the fore as we have kids back in the building this spring and move into fourth quarter. I think there probably will be some dollars that we need to say, like, hey, let's buy this right now, and we can use it well into the future.
Anybody else have any questions? It's a lot of work.
I'm sorry. This is Jody. I'd like to ask one more question. With the recent loss of one of our students in the Lake Oswego district to suicide, a lot of our kids and families have been doing a lot of the grief counseling and doing a lot of trainings through the schools on suicide prevention. And I know we're definitely seeing this in the middle school age kids as well, not just the high school. Are we going to be addressing this at all in the middle schools? And additionally, I thought that the person's comment or question about chill rooms was kind of a brilliant thought, because I believe after this pandemic and this isolation, we're going to see a lot of students with behaviors we've not seen before that they don't know how to cope with. And I know that the school, that most of the staff get that kind of training, and parents, maybe they're starting to participate in it, some of us. What additional thoughts are there, discussions around that we are very likely going to see this mental health challenge in our middle school kids?
It's a great question. And I think one of the things I've really appreciated this year is that, all our staff had the opportunity to be trained on the QPR protocols, the question, persuade, and respond. And I know that we've offered that training as well to our parents and our parent community. And I anticipate that we will continue to offer that training into the future. Miss Watts is one of our counselors and is a certified trainer for that group, and has facilitated that staff training, but also has done the community training as well for community members who have participated. So building more first responders in the world of mental health has been a priority for us this year, both on our staff and in our community. And I think will continue to be a priority as we move forward. And also building more curriculum around social emotional learning and supporting kids through relationship and through intentional conversations beyond just, what happens in wellness class, which is critically important to help kids as part of their required curriculum every year. They spend time thinking about issues of their own development and own personal well-being. I think that's an essential part of our core curriculum as kids move through middle school, and then also enhancing that with advisory lessons or social emotional learning lessons that are built around issues of character and connection with others, connection to family, and those kinds of things. So those will continue to be priorities for us moving forward. It's a staff learning priority, and it's a student learning priority, and it will be a community learning priority as we all navigate our way through this pandemic. It has been challenging on everybody, and I think one of the things we can't yet predict is what will the implications of that be 6 months, 1 year, 2 years down the road for student learning and development. I can say that one of the things I'm encouraged about is our students will be learning in a space that so much better respects who a middle school learner is. When they walk into the building and there are natural elements and there's a connection to the outside and the opportunity to go outdoors between classes or to sit and be able to look out any window in our building and see nature. Those are all inherently calming elements and really a positive development in our physical facility, while we are also developing the mental and emotional health muscles of our staff to support kids, and we'll continue to do parent education around that as well.
The building is a teaching and learning tool, right, Dr. Schultz?
You got it. There's a great book called Third Teacher that talks about physical spaces as teaching tools, and we definitely have been informed by that kind of thinking.
It's not just decorating.
You got it.
Right. So we are at the end of our time for tonight. I really appreciate everybody who came and all the great questions that were asked. Thank you so much for attending and giving us such a thorough presentation. Good luck tomorrow with the 7th graders. I know you're going to have a good day.
Tomorrow is online for everybody. It's a Wednesday.
Sorry. Online. Sorry, that's right.
Thursday. Scared me there.
Yeah.
Thursday. We'll see the 7th graders who are transitioning to hybrid on Thursday, and we'll keep seeing all of our online students every day. I think one of the things I don't want to get lost as we do this transition is we are just as committed to supporting our students who are staying online. And so I hope that you're seeing in my messaging and my communication, we are still very much thinking about our online students, because every one of our students is an online student for half their day, whether you come in person or not. We know that our remote connection is going to continue to be important. So it's going to continue to be a priority for us.
Absolutely. All right. PTO newsletter will be coming out in April. Spring break is also coming up. So everybody be safe, mask up. We'll see you when you come back. And if no one has anything else, we will see you soon for the April meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you.
Have a good night.